And welcome back. Well, most of the job news around the COVID-19 pandemic has focused on layoffs, and rightly so, given the fact of how many people have been directly impacted due to unemployment rates. But a less visible problem has been that workers who were fired for reasons connected to the pandemic. Now, depending on the circumstances, some of them may be able to sue their former employers for what's known as wrongful termination or wrongful discharge. Here to share more is the employment law attorney, Stephen Mitchell Sack. And Stephen, glad to have you with us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure.
It's glad to have you. And as we talk about this, a lot of people are affected by COVID-19. Some of them have already tried to navigate their unemployment woes. But to know that this is a possibility that they could actually have a case for wrongful termination and wrongful discharge. Share with our viewers a little bit about those two and exactly what is the definition of wrongful termination and a wrongful discharge.
All right. So you've asked a lot in one question. Let's go to work. I've been practicing for 41 years, and basically all I do all day long is represent fired executives and workers. So I'm fairly qualified to help you with this. New York is an interesting state. There's been a lot of developments outside of COVID in terms of rights that people have when they're fired. So the first thing I want all of our viewers to do is ask yourself, have you been fired right before an expected bonus, profit sharing plan, a pension, stock options? Because under New York law, it may be illegal for a company to fire you right before you're about to get an expected financial benefit, okay? Second thing is, there's a lot of laws now that protect people. For example, you can't be fired for complaining about equal pay. That's a new law. You can't be fired because of your sexual orientation. That's a new law. The New York City human rights laws are incredible. They're some of the most progressive, liberal laws in the country to protect people who are fired, okay? So it's those kinds of things you have to ask yourself. Are you the victim of age discrimination? Were you laid off did the company say, well, because of COVID, we're having financial problems, we got to lay you off, and you're 64 years old, and you find out a month later that they rehired in your position someone who's 35 years old, obviously you may have a claim for age discrimination. Under New York law, if you complain about sexual harassment, now the laws have dramatically improved so that people can't be fired in retaliation for complaining about sexual harassment or about safety in the workplace. So the list goes on and on. In terms of COVID, the question is, do people have the right to not get a vaccination? What happens if they're fired by refusing to take a vaccination? Well, we have to look to whether or not they have a bona fide religious belief and that it was fair under their religious belief not to get vaccinated. So there's a lot of questions, and the answers are developing, but whatever you need, just fire away and I'll help you out.
Rewind for a minute. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about these COVID vaccinations. Some people say, listen, my job is telling me I have to be vaccinated to work. Is that possible for a job to legally hold me to being vaccinated? And what if any are the loopholes?
Yeah, unfortunately, in general, an employer can make someone get vaccinated as a condition for returning to work. However, the loophole is that if a person is unable to take the vaccination, let's say they can't afford it, to pay for it, but now it's all free. But let's say they couldn't afford it, the employer would have to pay for it. Does the person have some sort of an illness or a prior history of illnesses that the vaccination might exacerbate, right? So then they might be able to get around that by claiming they can't get vaccinated because it's got to be like an accommodation to them, right? Because if they get vaccinated, they may get sick. I mean, some people do get sick after they're vaccinated. So if you could show that you had a pre-existing separate, not a virus, but a pre-existing medical condition, which would be severely impacted by getting a vaccination, well, then the employer will probably have to offer you a reasonable accommodation, meaning allowing you to work from home remotely, or, go in when people aren't around, that kind of thing. Or you might have a bona fide religious belief. The other day, I spoke to a woman, a Christian, who was refusing to get vaccinated as a condition for getting reemployed. And she asked me, did she have any rights? And I said, well, tell me why you don't want to take the vaccination. And she explained certain things to me based on her religious belief that some of the ingredients that go into a vaccination might be derived from, whatever. She said fetal tissue, whatever, and she could not tolerate accepting that. And she is a bona fide religious observer. And I said, well, you know what? If you can show that, then you don't have to get vaccinated, and the company is obligated to hire you and accommodate you. So, it depends on the various circumstances of each case.
Yeah, it's important as an employee to really document, I believe, your history and your grievances, if you will, when it comes to your employers. Give us some other.
That's a very important point that
Mhm.
our viewers should know. I'm sorry if I interrupted you, but I just wanted
No
to agree
worries.
with you on that. See, a lot of employers, whenever you fire somebody, it's generally suspect, right? Especially if the person is doing a good job. So what does the employer have to do, especially if they're firing someone who's, in a protected class, like an African American, a minority, a pregnant worker, an older worker? They'd have to, document the file to show that they were firing the person because of some problem on the job. And many times, employers make those things up, right? So what I want our viewers to know is whenever you get a performance review or a PIP, they call it, a personal improvement plan, which lays out various criteria, which you believe is factually incorrect or subjectively unfair, consider writing a rebuttal, right? Which says, hey, I don't agree with what you're saying, and get that, reviewed by HR or management, because that might be a way that you fight back. And most important for everyone is whenever you're fired, negotiate the firing. Do not accept whatever they're going to offer you and merely bow your head and shuffle your feet out the door. Every firing is negotiable. I mean, I've represented thousands and thousands of terminated employees and executives in my career, generally with successful results. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's going to get another $50,000, but you might get another month of pay if you ask for it. You might get notice pay. You might get more paid COBRA, from the company, outplacement assistance. And if, like I said before, if you're close to a vested pension or profit sharing plan or stock options or a bonus, they might give you a pro rata or a portion of that. Do not be afraid to open your mouth. Most companies are going to present you with a separation agreement. Under the terms of the agreement, you have the right to consult a lawyer, and you should talk to a lawyer about the agreement and try to negotiate a better deal. Don't be afraid that they're going to pull the deal off of the table from you, because it doesn't happen that way. If you just politely and respectfully say something like, I have 2 kids in college, I have an expensive home, the firing was sudden, you're putting me on the road to financial ruin. The 4-week severance that you've offered me, studies show it takes at least, $10,000 a month for every month, to find a new job. If you have a job and you're making $100,000 a year, it could take you 6 months to a year to find a gainful, comparable replacement job. You have to go in with confidence, and you have to negotiate a better deal for yourself.
Yeah. Stephen Sack, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you. Some much needed tips and advice. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. And certainly we encourage viewers to get connected to you if they have questions.
Thank you. And they can reach me at stephensack.com. That's my webpage, or the employee's lawyer. And my email address is stephensack, atty@hotmail.com. And I want you to know that whoever contacts me, I'm not charging them. I'll answer their questions. It's really my pleasure to give back to, the community.
All righty. Thanks a lot, Steve. We'll leave it there. All right. For more information, now you can visit his website again at theemployerslawyer.com. And then also on social media, you also have him at Twitter at Stephen M. Sack. Listen, we got more show coming up. Stay with us. Open continues coming up. after this.